Under a grey winter sky on January 31st, 1943, the ruins of Stalingrad trembled beneath the echo of distant artillery. Smoke drifted over a frozen hellscape of shattered factories and lifeless soldiers encased in ice. In the west, across France's occupied countryside, German officers gathered around captured American weapons. One in particular, a sleek semi-automatic rifle, unlike anything in their arsenals. They laughed. "A waste of ammunition," one officer reportedly said, tapping the wooden stock with a gloved finger. "Too delicate for war." Bundesarchiv Wehrmacht Technical Report Feb 1943. But months later, on another front, that same weapon would erase the laughter, replacing it with disbelief and panic. At dawn on November 8, 1942, the beaches of North Africa erupted with fire. Operation Torch had begun. The U.S. Army, still untested on a massive European battlefield, surged ashore under the rattle of machine gun nests and the howl of artillery. The German Afrika Korps, hardened under Rommel's command, expected slow. Clumsy American infantry, armed with outdated bolt-action rifles, like the M1 903 Springfield, 5 rounds, 1 shot at a time. Instead, what emerged through the smoke were squads firing twice, 3 times as fast, moving with precision. Each man carried a rifle that spat lead in relentless rhythm, the M1 Garand. U.S. Army After Action Report, North Africa, 1942. Its sound was alien, neither the harsh crack of the Kar 98K nor the steady rhythm of a machine gun. It was a rolling thunder of 8-shot bursts, metallic pings ringing out as en-bloc clips ejected into the sand. The Germans thought it was impossible. Infantry armed with semi-automatic rifles, every man firing as if he carried a machine gun. They believed the Americans were equipped with submachine guns, or that they'd overrun a German weapons cache. But the truth was simpler and far more dangerous. The Americans had industrialized precision itself. Signal Corps Dispatch, 1942. The story of the M1 Garand began not on the battlefield, but in the quiet hum of a Springfield Armory workshop in Massachusetts. There, a Canadian-born engineer named John C. Garand labored over blueprints and prototypes during the interwar years. His vision defied military orthodoxy. He believed a soldier's speed and accuracy could be multiplied not by muscle or courage, but by engineering. Springfield Armory Design Notes, 1936. While European powers clung to the bolt action, Garand created a gas-operated, self-loading mechanism that recycled energy from each shot, automatically chambering the next round. No bolt to lift, no delay between shots, just a smooth rhythm of fire and recoil. By 1936, the M1 Garand became the standard-issue rifle of the U.S. Army, the first semi-automatic service rifle adopted by a major power. Yet its debut stirred controversy even at home. Traditionalists claimed it wasted ammunition, that soldiers would spray and pray. Army Ordnance Board Minutes, 1937. But the tests told another story. Soldiers armed with Garands hit more targets faster under pressure. As war approached, production ramped up at Springfield Armory and Winchester Repeating Arms, fueled by American industry's limitless hunger for innovation. By 1941, over 600 rifles a day rolled off the assembly line, each one a product of precision machining and industrial discipline. War Department Production Report, 1941. When America entered the war after Pearl Harbor, these rifles became the heartbeat of the new U.S. infantry. They arrived in crates marked U.S. Rifle, Cal 230 M1, destined for deserts, jungles and snow-covered villages. To the average soldier, it was more than steel and walnut. It was survival. Veterans later recalled the weapon's dependability in mud, heat, and rain. One Marine wrote home from Guadalcanal, "The Garand never jams, never quits. It talks loud and the Japs listen." Marine Corps Field Letter, 1942. Yet early skepticism persisted among the Axis. The German Wehrmacht, armed primarily with the bolt-action Karabiner 98K, considered semi-automatics impractical. Their ordnance bureaus dismissed American claims of mass production and reliability. Heereswaffenamt Internal Memo 1945. German doctrine emphasized accuracy over volume, trained marksmen 1 shot at a time. The idea of every rifleman firing 8 rounds in seconds contradicted their entire tactical philosophy. But on the battlefields of North Africa, that doctrine began to fracture. American platoons advancing through rocky terrain used the Garands' fire rate to pin German defenders in place. Machine gun teams, once the core of German infantry tactics, were suddenly outpaced by squads of ordinary riflemen. "They shoot too fast," noted one captured German sergeant stunned by the volume of fire. Dramatized composite. Allied after-action reports describe German units hesitating to counterattack under withering rifle fire, believing they faced superior numbers. U.S. Army Intelligence Summary, NOF 1942. By early 1943, the Afrika Korps could no longer ignore the Patton. Reports circulated among German officers describing an American rifle capable of rapid and repeated fire without manual operation. Bundesarchiv, Afrika Korps Communication Log, Jan 1943. The rifle's psychological impact was as lethal as its bullets. In foxholes and trenches, soldiers could hear the distinctive ping of empty clips, a brief lull before another storm of rounds. To the Germans, it felt endless. Meanwhile, back in the United States, the weapons production became a symbol of industrial will. Thousands of workers, many of them women, assembled, polished, and tested Garands in vast factory halls. Each part had to fit perfectly. Tolerances were measured in thousandths of an inch. No single defect could hide, recalled a machinist in a post-war interview. Oral History, Springfield Worker, 1946. This mechanical precision translated directly to battlefield dominance. While the Axis scrambled to produce equivalent designs, the G41 and later the G43, the Americans had already standardized perfection. In the hills of Tunisia, one American lieutenant described the effect of his men's Garands against German patrols. "They never had time to aim. We did." 7th Infantry Division Report, Feb 1943. What began as a mocked experiment was rewriting the rules of infantry warfare. The Garand gave the U.S. soldier a fundamental advantage: speed. Where a German rifleman fired and reloaded, an American could fire 3, 4, 5 shots before his opponent could cycle his bolt once. Multiply that across platoons, companies, entire divisions, and the arithmetic of battle shifted overnight. Still, the true potential of the M1 Garand was yet to be tested on Europe's main stage. In the coming year, as Allied forces prepared to storm Italy, Sicily, and eventually Normandy, the rifle's legend would either prove itself or die under German fire. The engineers at Springfield Armory had delivered their masterpiece, and American soldiers had carried it into battle. Now, as the war's tide began to turn, the world would learn what happened when industrial precision met battlefield chaos. For the German soldiers, who once mocked America's toy rifle, the laughter was fading fast. But they had not yet seen the full fury of what that weapon, and the nation behind it, could do when unleashed on Europe's heartland. The year 1944 was coming, and with it a storm of steel and fire. In the early hours of June 6, 1944, D-Day, the English Channel churned beneath an armada of steel. Over 150,000 Allied troops surged toward Normandy's shores. Among them were thousands of American infantrymen gripping their M1 Garands, rifles wrapped in oil-soaked rags against the salt spray. As the landing craft doors dropped, bullets snapped through the mist. Men stumbled into the surf, water turning crimson. Amid the chaos, the Garand's mechanical rhythm began, 8 sharp cracks at a time, then the metallic ring of an empty clip ejecting, followed by another burst. That sound, multiplied by tens of thousands, became the anthem of liberation. U.S. Army Landing Report, June 1944. To the German defenders entrenched in concrete bunkers, the storm seemed unnatural. Their Mauser rifles barked methodically, one shot at a time. But the Americans fired in rolling waves, suppressing, advancing, firing again. Each squad functioned like a miniature machine gun team. On Omaha Beach, where chaos threatened to engulf the invasion, the M1 Garand's reliability turned panic into momentum. "We were pinned, but the Garands kept talking," recalled Private First Class Robert Slattery of the 29th Infantry Division. "You could feel the rifle's rhythm steady you." Veteran Oral History, 1946. The rifle's hidden advantage lay not in raw firepower alone, but in its design. John Garand's gas-operated system diverted a portion of the bullet's energy to cycle the bolt, automatically loading the next round. That meant a soldier never had to break his sight picture or waste precious seconds manipulating a bolt handle. In combat, that margin meant life or death. The rifle's 8-round en-bloc clip, feeding 30.06 Springfield cartridges, gave each soldier nearly continuous fire until the clip ejected with its iconic ping. At 2.5 rounds per second, an entire squad of 12 men could unleash nearly 240 aim shots before the enemy fired 50. Technical Manual TM 9-1275, 1943. German engineers had tried to bridge that gap. The Gewehr 41 G41 was their answer. A semi-automatic rifle rushed into service in 1943, but its complex gas system and poor field reliability made it prone to jamming under dirt or extreme cold. Useless in dust. Heavy, awkward, noted one test officer. Heereswaffenamt Field Evaluation 1940. Later came the improved G43, but production lagged. Only 400,000 would ever be made, compared to over 5 million Garands. Bureau of Ordnance Production Summary 1945. The industrial imbalance mirrored the tactical one. The M1's engineering genius also came from its materials. Its 24-inch barrel, precision-forged steel receiver and gas cylinder assembly were machined to microscopic tolerances. Springfield Armory's metallurgists perfected a process of heat-treating steel that resisted warping under heat and pressure. The secret wasn't magic, it was machining, said engineer George E. Hyde in a 1944 production memo. Springfield Armory Engineering Archive, 1944. That precision allowed the rifle to function in the mud of Normandy, the snow of Bastogne, and the jungles of Leyte alike. In one of the rifle's defining moments, during the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944, its reliability saved countless lives. As temperatures plunged below zero, lubricants froze and weapons seized. German troops launched their surprise counterattack through the Ardennes, overwhelming thin American lines. Yet, while many Allied machine guns jammed in the cold, the M1 Garand kept firing. Soldiers learned to cycle their weapons beneath coats, using body heat to keep them ready. The Garand never froze, wrote a sergeant of the 101st Airborne. When everything else quit, it didn't. Bastogne Defense Log, Deck, 1944. By this point, even German commanders were taking notice. Captured American rifles were tested and envied. Reports circulated up the chain of command, describing an astonishingly reliable semi-automatic rifle, simple in operation and unmatched in volume of fire. Oberkommando der Wehrmacht Summary, Jan, 1945. German soldiers began scavenging Garands from the battlefield when ammunition could be found. The myth of the toy rifle had evaporated. From a tactical perspective, the Garand revolutionized infantry doctrine. U.S. field manuals of 1943 reflected this shift. Squads no longer relied solely on a single automatic weapon. Instead, every rifleman became part of a synchronized rhythm of suppression. The rifleman is now his own base of fire, one manual declared. U.S. Infantry Doctrine FM 7-10, 1943. This change multiplied American unit effectiveness in both offensive and defensive operations. In the hedgerows of Normandy, soldiers used the Garand's rapid fire to keep enemy heads down while others flanked. In the streets of Aachen, urban combat teams cleared buildings one room at a time, firing fast and moving faster. Meanwhile, back in the States, production lines thundered around the clock. The Detroit Arsenal tank plant may have symbolized American armor, but Springfield Armory symbolized precision. Women in blue factory coats inspected every bolt and gas cylinder. Riveters, machinists, and inspectors formed a vast orchestra of war industry. By 1944, over 4.5 million M1 Garands had been produced, each requiring 79 pounds of steel and 10 hours of machining. War Production Board Report 1944. John Garand himself, a quiet perfectionist, refused royalties for his invention, believing it belonged to the soldiers who used it. Interview War Department Film Unit, 1945. The Germans tried to compensate with their famed MG-42 machine gun, nicknamed Hitler's buzzsaw. Its blistering 1,200 rounds per minute rate of fire struck fear into Allied troops. But where the MG-42 demanded belts of ammunition and crew coordination, the Garand multiplied the effectiveness of every individual rifleman. In practice, the U.S. squads achieved similar suppressive effects with far less logistical burden. Allied Tactical Evaluation, Feb. 1945. During the assault on Hill 192 near St. Lo, July 1944, the Garands' advantage reached its zenith. American units from the 2nd Infantry Division faced entrenched German defenders armed with Kar-98Ks and MG-42s. The terrain was dense, fields divided by hedgerows and stone walls. When the assault began, the Germans expected the Americans to halt under machine gun fire. Instead, the Garands roared in synchronized fury. It sounded like typewriters, one German corporal recalled. Dramatized composite. U.S. soldiers fired, advanced, fired again, maintaining suppressive pressure that denied the enemy a moment to reload. The position fell in less than an hour. After-action report, Hill 192, July 1944. Technical assessments after the battle revealed the efficiency difference in stark numbers. For every German bullet fired, Americans had fired 3. But the American rounds hit more often, thanks to faster target reacquisition and semi-automatic precision. Casualties favored the U.S. 2-to-1, Army Ordnance Statistical Analysis 1944. What doctrine couldn't predict, the Garands' mechanics enforced. Momentum kills hesitation. By late 1944, even the Soviets, fighting their own desperate war on the Eastern Front, requested shipments of M1 rifles under Lend-Lease, impressed by reports from Western Europe. U.S. Lend-Lease Records, Dec 1944. The weapon had transcended national pride. It became a symbol of technological inevitability. When General George S. Patton was asked his opinion, his words were immortalized in military lore. In my opinion, the M1 rifle is the greatest battle implement ever devised. Patton Field Memo, Jan 1945. The statement wasn't just praise, it was prophecy. Because by the time the smoke cleared over the Ardennes, the rifle's reputation was written in both steel and blood. Yet beyond the mechanics, there was something deeper. Confidence. American soldiers trusted their weapon to do its job. It didn't jam, didn't falter, didn't betray them when it mattered most. And that trust, multiplied across millions, created an unshakable sense of superiority. But as the Allies crossed the Rhine and closed in on Berlin, the world began to wonder. How would this rifle, born from an engineer's obsession, shape the future of warfare? By April 1945, the thunder of artillery had reached the outskirts of Berlin. Allied forces closed in from every direction, the air thick with the stench of smoke and fuel. In the west, American infantry advanced across shattered bridges, M1 Garand slung tight against their shoulders. The same weapon that had been mocked 3 years earlier now echoed across Europe as the sound of inevitability. Every city block, every farmhouse, every forest, its rhythm was there. 8 sharp shots, a metallic ping, then 8 more. The rifle had not only changed the tactics of war, it had changed the psychology of those who fought it. U.S. Army Field Report, April 1945. The Germans felt it first. In countless engagements, Wehrmacht after-action logs described impossible volumes of rifle fire that pinned entire platoons. Bundesarchiv Army Group B Report, March 1945. German commanders couldn't understand how ordinary American soldiers fired so fast, so accurately, and so long without machine gun support. They suspected new tactics, secret weapons, or even deception. The truth was simpler. American industrial discipline had given every man a weapon that turned individual initiative into overwhelming pressure. The Garand wasn't just a rifle, it was a doctrine made tangible. Psychologically, it broke the myth of German superiority in small arms combat. For years, Nazi propaganda had celebrated the precision of the Mauser, the engineering of the MG-42, and the marksmanship of the German soldier. But in the final battles of 1945, that pride eroded. Captured diaries spoke of frustration and fear. They shoot and move like machines. Their rifles never stop, dramatized composite. Each American squad functioned with mechanical efficiency, replacing the bolt-action's pause with unbroken aggression. This transformation rippled far beyond the battlefield. Inside the U.S. Army morale soared. Infantrymen once considered expendable, outgunned and outmatched, now carried the finest rifle in the world. "The Garand gave us confidence," wrote one lieutenant after the war. "When you trust your weapon, you fight differently." Veteran letter, 1946. The rifle became an equalizer. No matter one's rank, background, or luck, Every soldier wielded the same precision instrument of war. Behind this confidence stood an invisible army of engineers, machinists, and inspectors. Springfield Armory alone employed over 14,000 workers by 1944, and Winchester added thousands more. They fine-tuned feed lips, gas ports, and trigger assemblies under fluorescent lights, while listening to radio bulletins from the front. Every adjustment, every inspection, meant fewer jams, fewer failures, and fewer dead sons overseas. "Each rifle that passed our line was a promise," said machinist Ruth Donovan in a post-war interview. Oral History, 1947. It was a war not just of soldiers, but of precision instruments and the hands that made them. Strategically, the Garands' mass deployment altered how armies conceived of firepower. Before the war, the equation was simple. Machine guns dominated, rifles supported. After 1945, that balance collapsed. The semi-automatic rifle blurred the line between infantryman and automatic gunner, U.S. tactical. Manuals rewritten in 1946 emphasized continuous aimed fire by all personnel as the cornerstone of infantry operations. Infantry Board Report 1946. The battlefield was no longer ruled by isolated bursts of fire, but by synchronized streams of steel. For the Axis, the lesson came too late. Late-war German efforts to field assault rifles like the Sturmgewehr 44, select-fire weapons firing intermediate cartridges, showed a desperate attempt to reclaim initiative. The concept was revolutionary, but production was chaos, too little, too late. Heereswaffenamt production record 1944. Ironically, the Americans had already demonstrated the principle years earlier, not through bursts but through reliability and speed of aimed fire. The M1 had proved that precision, sustained under pressure, could defeat any rate of fire that faltered under stress. The psychological toll of that reliability also carried into post-war studies, U.S. strategic, bombing survey reports, and prisoner interrogations in 1946 revealed consistent themes. German soldiers often overestimated American unit strength due to the volume of rifle fire they encountered. "We thought they were double their numbers," confessed one Wehrmacht officer. U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey 1946. The weapon had warped perception itself, creating an illusion of numerical dominance. Even after the war ended, the Garands' legacy endured. It served through Korea, where freezing mountains and monsoon valleys once again tested its endurance. Soldiers praised its power and accuracy at ranges up to 500 yards, cutting through the din of Chinese bugle charges. Far East Command Report 1951. Engineers continued refining its gas system and metallurgy, leading eventually to its successor, the M14, built upon Garand's blueprint. Each evolution of U.S. infantry design carried the DNA of that original vision from the 1930s workshop. The rifle's influence also stretched into philosophy. Military theorists studying World War II saw the M1 as a bridge between industrial power and individual agency. It embodied the American belief that mass production could amplify the skill of the individual soldier. Where totalitarian states trusted hierarchy and specialization, the U.S. trusted the ordinary man armed with superior tools. U.S. War Department Analytical Memo 1947. It was democracy expressed in steel. Each rifle identical, each man equally empowered to act. John C. Garand, the man behind it all, watched quietly from Springfield Armory as victory celebrations erupted in 1945. He had never seen combat, never fired in anger, yet his invention had changed warfare. When offered patents or profits, he declined. "It was my job," he said simply. Interview transcript 1945. His design philosophy, function above form, simplicity above flair, would echo in every rifle and carbine that followed. As the Cold War dawned, the Garands' descendants armed new generations. From NATO allies in Europe to allies in Asia, the rifle's design became the backbone of Western infantry doctrine. Its core idea that speed, reliability, and industrial precision outweighed sheer volume remained timeless. In the jungles of Vietnam, in the deserts of the Middle East, even in modern military training halls, echoes of its design persist. But its most profound legacy isn't found in steel or statistics. It lies in the men who carried it. Veterans who returned home often kept their rifles in memory, not as weapons of death, but as symbols of endurance. They remembered its weight, the warmth of its walnut stock after hours in the cold, the clean recoil against the shoulder. One veteran years later described it simply, "It never failed me. Not once," dramatized composite. In every sense, the M1 Garand reshaped what it meant to fight and to endure. It proved that a rifle could be more than a tool. It could be an embodiment of a nation's character, innovative, relentless, unyielding. As the war's dust settled and the world entered a fragile peace, historians began to measure its true impact. Beyond battles won or lost, it had redefined warfare itself. In modern combat, one post-war analyst concluded, the side that fires first, fastest, and longest wins. Defense Analysis Division, 1948. That truth, born from one man's obsession with precision, endures today. The M1 Garand did not just win battles. It forged an era where connection, coordination, and craftsmanship proved deadlier than brute force. And so, in the final echo of its metallic ping, the last note of 8 rounds spent, the world learned a lesson that would define the century to come. In modern war, connection outweighs firepower, and speed defeats armor.